Welcome to the Practical Enneagram. I have the perfect guest for you on this day, the very industrious and highly relational Cindy Leong, founder of Enneagram Academy Singapore, resident love doctor of Class 95, it's a radio station, relationship coach on Bumble, and highly sought after Enneagram teacher and corporate trainer. As ever, this interview was a fun opportunity to meet Cindy and ask her some questions about all things dating. It turned out to be a rare opportunity to learn a little more about a culture I personally find interesting as well from an Enneagram perspective. You can learn more about Cindy and her work at theenneagramacademy.com and relationshipstudio.sg. I hope that you enjoy this last interview I'm doing in this particular style. From the next episode, I'm trying something new. I'll tell you more about that next time. Your way to the Enneagram pretty young, didn't you? You were in your 20s. I think I heard in another interview that you trained with one of the sort of...
Oh, with Claudio Naranjo.
Yeah.
Yeah, before he passed on, I'm one of the first few Singaporeans that kind of traveled to the US to meet him personally. And been through his entire program. And also having trained by Ginger, Lapid, and also Peter O'Harrenhan. Ginger and Peter actually visited Singapore. And in this part of the world is a bit more multi-language. Like, of course, Singapore is English speaking, right? And then you see different parts of Asia. No, English is not their native language. So not many Asians might come over unless they're really, really good with their English, right? And then you have China being the top north, right? And generally not many Chinese would come over as well. So I would say that it's a huge risk for an Enneagram teacher to travel this far to meet us.
And what about the focus that you've sort of taken, Enneagram and relationships? Why?
Oh, I think the primary reason, which I think a lot of people who have heard me share about my life would have known that I have many failed relationships in the past. So that makes sense that I'm using the Enneagram to help me in my understanding of myself and also relationship blind spots, right? And how I can build better relationships with people around me. And that is how Relationship Studio was first started, to help people make sense of themselves and their relationships around them, be it personal relationships or corporate professional relationships.
Now, I know what your type is, but maybe can you share?
Oh yeah, so I'm a 3, right? So 3 is like no failure. But then when I had my very first divorce at age of 24, I think that is a very big wake-up call for me, right? Because it's kind of, you can't run away from it. You can't deceive yourself further to know that, relationships have been breaking apart. So I better do something about it. And that is when I chanced upon the Enneagram. It was in fact introduced to me by another friend who is a coach. Yeah, so he says that, hey, this profiling tool is really good. It gives you a lot of understanding into yourself and your relationships. And I'm like, okay, let me see what it is, right? Because I'm a psychology major student. So I've done all sorts of psychometric tests. So impress me with yet another psychometric tool. So that is when I tried the Enneagram, and obviously I never looked back.
Yeah. Was it easy to find your type?
Oh yeah, it was very easy.
Yeah.
It was obvious for me.
It was obvious.
Yeah. Of course, I did the first, the online test, okay, that came out as a 3. So then I have very high scores on 4 as well. So I could really be a 4, right? So I could be a 4-wing 3 or 3-wing 4. But I'm in a very clear sign that, tells me that I'm a 3 and not a 4, is about the part about cutting off emotions, right? So for 3, it's relatively easy to cut off emotions just to get the task done. For 4 is generally harder, right? So that is a very clear sign for me. I know I'm a 3. And of course, the thinking pattern of a 3, like a 3 is really good at cost benefit analysis. And that helps me to think about in the past the kind of conversations that I have, even with my friends. Like, there's this Singaporean dish called the chili crab. And you have to put in a lot of effort to get the crab meat, right? You have to take away the shells and all that. And I catch myself saying statements like, no, I don't feel like eating crab. It's too much effort for too little pleasure. Even in a day-to-day thing,
Yeah. I only asked that question because I think most threes that I've met anyway did like you, found it was a quick identification, but there are some that take a while, don't they? And also sexual 3, your instinct subtype, it's not, I don't think it's the one probably most described in the descriptions. Do you?
When discovering about subtype, it was interesting because initially my friend thought that I am a social 3 because I'm a pretty social person, right? But then again, social skills is not the same as social instincts. So then I realized as I discover deeper, I go into a social setting, not because I want to talk to every single person, even though I realized in the past I forced myself to do that. The 3 in me is like, okay, make the best out of today to talk to as many people as possible so that I'm not wasting my time here. But I realized that is a very forced behavior. What is my comfort zone is actually just to talk to one person throughout the party. I don't have to force myself to talk to everybody. And at the end of the day, I just feel drained. I feel I don't get to know anyone deeply. And I feel that I've just wasted my time. So I rather prefer to talk to one person and have a deep dive conversation. And that was when I discovered that my instincts is more sexual than social. And also something interesting is the Asian connotation about the word sexual.
Didn't even think. Can you tell me about that? Is it not a word that's particularly comfortable?
Yeah. Whenever I use the word sexual in my class, I get people raising their eyebrows. So we have to mute it into like, okay, one-to-one instincts. Because if you use sexual, it's like, And our society over here, even though Singapore is a pretty progressive nation, it's pretty westernized, but our mindset, we are still pretty traditional in certain things. So when we talk about the word sexual, we have to mute. Yeah. Even sexual jokes, we can't really be sharing it openly.
Yeah.
Only among the sexual subtypes, okay, because now we have common understanding now. But in the past, I do find myself having to hold back because it's just socially not appropriate.
That's a very real challenge. I suppose the problem with that is, it puts a limit on how much I can understand about the expression of that instinct, but you've got to work with it, haven't you? It wouldn't be pragmatic for you to continue to talk, say, sexual.
Yeah. So after teaching the Enneagram for so many years, I've been like pretty open to tell people about one-to-one instinct, which is also the sexual instinct. And why is it called a sexual instinct? And I even have to do a disclaimer to explain to them that there's nothing wrong with this sexual instinct, to even use the word sexual in an Asian setting. But it's just that it's true. I mean, in my classes, self-preservation instincts are the majority. You get about 60 to 70%. Which is a lot. Then you have the sexual, then you have the social, which is not that many. Whenever we did a one-day program on the instincts and subtype, that's usually the proportion. Which growing up, I'm pretty sure that our environment is very self-preservation. Like our parents would be giving you your allowance, right? And very little emotional connection, and seeing that as loving you. It is just giving you the money, put food on the table. So that's love. Very self-preservation.
And that suggests that our instincts, the dominant instincts, happens in early childhood, which I always think that must be true. I don't think we can't be born with it. But and yours, are you self-pres? Do you think you are last self-pres or self-pres in the middle?
I'm last.
So you must have had fun growing up.
I didn't really enjoy it because I don't feel I have much connection with people around me. So I knew that I have a really good best friend in school. I think she's a sexual 9. So you have a sexual 9 and a sexual 3 hang out all day long in school. And it's always just the two of us hanging in and out of school, right? And we're like the best friends forever kind of thing. And I thought that's normal. Then, after growing up, I learned about instincts. Then I know that, hey, that's not too normal. That's just normal for the sexual subtypes. Then I do see that, the social subtypes are the one that is always, big on energy. They're friends with everybody. Yeah. And they just operate differently, right? It's funny, when I was pregnant, people always tells me, it's great. Just eat anything you want. Just eat all your favorite food. I was like, no, I'm not big on food. I'm actually not interested in food. And to have to think of so many meals a day just because I'm pregnant is just a headache. It's like, I just told my husband, I'm just not interested in all this food. And now I have to eat so many meals a day. My God. And the 3 kicks in and go, this is such a waste of time.
Completely imagine. Okay, Cindy, there's a research that you presented at the IEA on why eligible individuals find it hard to fall in love in Asia. Can you share about that?
Okay. I actually did 2 presentations. This is the first one. And then there is a second one that is on 5 love languages and instincts. Yeah, so the first one is really just the preliminary work, right? Just saying that, there's a lot of singles in Singapore. And in fact, fun fact for all of you, all the listeners out there, I think Singapore is almost the only country in the world that actually has a government body that regulates dating activities in Singapore. If you are not registered under the registry of marriage, which means you are still considered single in the eyes of the law, right? You are given a certain amount of credit to spend on dating activities organized by accredited dating agencies. But don't worry, it's not a lot, okay? It's not a lot. It's probably going to last you for probably 3 meals. That's about it. But at least it gets you 3 dates. So it's really to encourage, singles to come up and meet new people. And it's so well organized that I hear from my husband that when he was in university, once he graduates, he start receiving all that email lists from them, and then once he got married, they stopped sending email lists. Yeah, because birth rates are very low here. And so they're really trying to encourage, more birth, right? So so this is one of the things to encourage singles to meet new people. So when I work with the singles with our sister company, which is actually the dating agency, we got them to do Enneagram before they come for the matchmaking. So they have to sit through a 2-day self-discovery Enneagram before they are matched with somebody. With that's where all the data comes in, right? To see that, hey, why are the various Enneagram types still single? What are the relationship blind spots? And so that's how I gathered all the relevant data.
Thing in Sweden, what were you speaking about in Sweden?
The latest one is on 5 love languages and instincts.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so the last, just what we spoke about, 5 love languages is something that I think we know for many, many years. But somehow, if you realize, if you put in the instincts element into the 5 love languages, you could actually break them down into 3 further groups. So it's not just 5, it's actually 5 times 3. So that's 15. Wow. Yeah. So for example, if you are someone who is big on quality time. So then what would constitute quality time for a self-preservation subtype versus a social subtype versus a sexual subtype?
I could see immediately that it would be different, wouldn't it?
It will be different, right? Yeah. So even though you say quality time, but your quality time and my quality time is completely different. Like for self-preservation, it could be like a cozy meal at home.
Yeah.
That's quality time, or preparing a meal together. But for social, it would be like a bunch of friends coming together. Like you want everybody to be there, everyone. So 10 people squeezing in your living room, which is very different from self-preservation's needs, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the sexual one, which I don't want everybody. I just want one person to be with me. Yeah. And maybe let's not do the cooking because that's really too time consuming. Let's just order some food in and, have a wine and let's have good conversations.
So it's Gary Chapman's 5 languages with the instinct. Yes. And then you're using that, I suppose, once you know that about your partner and yourself, you can do a better job of loving in the language, right?
Exactly. So you're now more specific in that, right? Yeah. And then we talk about giving gifts. Again, what is a self-preservation gift? What is a social gift? And what is a sexual gift? In this very self-preservation society, gift vouchers is really the thing to give. And it will never go wrong. If it's baby shower, someone is having housewarming, a wedding, gift vouchers will never go wrong. And, red packet, we call it ang pao, which is a red packet, for good luck for the Chinese. You put money in, that would never go wrong. But for the sexual, like me, this has always been something that we feel, it's just not as thoughtful. It's the easiest way out. Yeah. So for us, we would prefer a handwritten card, right? Like something, handwritten card, it's like probably cheaper than a gift voucher. But then the words on it is priceless. So that may mean more to us, right? Or a handmade something. The kind of gift to give to the different instincts are different. And social, they will prefer a gift that is, something that they can share. A bottle of champagne, a box of chocolate, a board game that they can play with the family. Yeah, something that everyone can come together to do, and share. It's actually my new book.
What's the title of the book?
Oh, it's called Knowing Me, Knowing You.
Oh, I love it.
The Airbus song. So I dedicated one chapter just on this, on 5 love languages and the instincts. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think the Enneagram useful? Is it a useful thing for a single person who is dating to know? And if it is, how is it best used?
Okay. We should never use the Enneagram to write people off. So you should not be saying that, okay, I'm a 3 and okay, I should not date a 4 because they are too dramatic and blah, 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 blah. So you shouldn't be using a type to write people off because every type has got low mastery to higher mastery levels. So we always talk about 3 levels of relationship building. The first level is synergy. Every type can have good synergy. So I can say that, a type 4 partner would complement me really well because a 4 would help me to empathize. They will help me to see things from various perspectives, to feel more of myself so that I can be more authentic with myself. While I can help the 4 to be more task focused, to be, more focused on timeline, deadline, getting the tasks done and meeting the objectives. So both parties can really complement each other well. And that is the synergy part. But the next stage that I usually would focus on is the conflict stage. So every type, you have a synergy stage, and then you have a conflict stage where, in this case, a 3 and a 4, how would they enter into a conflict? How would the conflict show up? What would it look like? How are their differences going to cause challenges moving on in the relationship? So these are things that we should be aware of. So for a single person or someone who is dating, you should be aware of what's coming ahead. So when it happens, you know that, hey, it is happening and this is part of the teething issue. So there's nothing to be too worried or concerned or or afraid of, just face it, deal with it, set healthy boundaries to make the relationship work better, right? And then the third stage is what I call the flourishing stage, where we've talked through everything. We've talked through the boundaries. We've talked through our differences. For example, the 3 would probably say things like, I know you, maybe as a 4, you need to talk about how you're feeling today, but right now I have a deadline to meet. So is it possible that you give me an hour and I'll come attend to you? Or the 4 can tell the 3 that, there will be times where I cannot even wait for an hour. Can we have a compromise that, if this is such a big issue that is bothering me on a scale of 0 to 10 and it's weighing at 8, 9, or 10, which means it's really serious, could you actually just drop everything and attend to me immediately? So both parties kind of find that middle ground after, rounds of communication, right? So that's when any type can reach a flourishing phase. So 3 stages, right? So synergy, conflict, and flourishing stage.
I suppose it relies on both people knowing the Enneagram and having quite a fair bit of self-awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, but even if it's, if one party were to know that, it kind of helped by a bit, right? Yeah. Rather than both parties not knowing anything. At least you know what not to do to trigger the other person. But of course, you'll come to a point where you realize that you're always the one compromising because you know more than the other party. And that's when you might want to invite your partner to enroll into having the same shared knowledge of the Enneagram. So that comes a bit later. So I would say having some knowledge is better than none.
So that process that you just described, synergy, conflict, flourish, that's once you are, you're a few months into dating someone, that's the sort of process. But I think even at the very early stages of dating, or when you don't really know the other person's type, I have found it useful not to take other people's behaviours personally. So since I've known the Enneagram, I cannot assume something they're doing is because of the same reason I would do it. It could be...
Yeah, it's true. And it's always good to check in with the other person. Like, hey, just want to know, just curious, why did you do that? You might hear a completely different reason. Yeah, and that's how, you can clear the air and, reduce misunderstanding. Because I think misunderstanding usually happens when people refuse to talk about things and we assume that we know. Yeah. But that's not the case.
Yeah. Do you think some types are better at being single?
What do you think? We do know that there are certain types, certain subtypes, certain instincts, right? They rather prefer to be alone. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, again, in Asian culture and in our culture where government is advocating, have kids, get married, Asian parents would be like, hey, should get married. If not, there's something wrong with you. I think it's always this social stigma that makes singlehood a bit less attractive. But I would say that there should be nothing wrong to fault someone if someone prefers to be single. Yeah. And yes, there are certain types, right? Like we know already, like the type 5s, especially the self-preservation ones, they are perfectly fine being on their own. But the question I always ask them is that, yes, you can choose to be single all your life, but just one question you have to ask yourself, are you making an informed choice? If you can visualize yourself, at 60, 70 years old, going to doctors on your own, right? Going to the hospital on your own, or if you foresee yourself being in a retirement village, having that healthcare kind of facilities, if you can visualize yourself doing all that on your own or with maybe a couple of friends, then that's fine. If you feel that you'll be really lonely on your own, then maybe you may want to find someone. And then that's always that pros and cons.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the withdrawn types who value personal space would say that it's probably fine to be on their own. Yeah, especially the self-preservation subtypes, right? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I think they can be a bit too good at being single, and then that means they don't ever get the incentive to look for a partner, and then it can be too late, Let's talk about attraction, Cindy. If you were to, because attraction is also, I think, something, well, you could look at it from the center's perspective. So we could have a mental attraction or emotional attraction and an instinctual attraction, right? Do you think our Enneagram type is influencing our attraction to other people?
Recently I was actually listening to this. I think he's a researcher. So he's researching on flirting behaviors and attraction. So instincts does affect like how you flirt and how you're being seen as attractive to different types. And of course you have the different stacking, right? Like are you a first sexual or social, then self-pres, or you first social, sexual, then self-pres? So in terms of attraction, okay, again, attraction is very subjective. For example, a self-preservation person would see another self-preservation person as more attractive. If I'm a sexual, I may see this as not so attractive, perhaps. Or at different stages in my life, I needed some stability, and I may see this self-pres person as being more attractive than a sexual person who maybe, or even social, right? Because they just, everybody just wants a bit of their time. And if you want to settle down, you want someone who is more homely. And that is when, at that point in your life, you might be more attracted to a self-preservation person. So it's very high. It's actually very high on instincts rather than just the types itself. I would say for types, the attraction comes when you kind of see the similarities in the type. Like this, sometimes similar ones attract. Like the 3 would be attracted to 7, 7 might be attracted to 8, 8 might be attracted to 3. So the 3, 7, 8, which is the assertive triads, might find that, hey, we are high on energy, we have some things in common. So you can see that. You can also see the opposite attracts as well. Like sometimes you do see a 1 and 7, which is like my parents. They're totally opposite poles apart, but they are married to each other. And then you can see an 8 and a 5, which is again totally opposite, but yet they attract. So I can see that the similar ones attracts, the opposite one attracts as well. There's no hard and fast rule that, certain type will not be attracted to certain type. It's just what you see at that time as attractive. As you move up your mastery level and the healthier of the types, you are more willing to work through the differences. So again, it is nothing to do with the type itself. It's actually the search for finding someone who is similar in your mastery level. That means if you're high and your partner is high, both of you could talk things out. But if I'm high and the partner is low, you feel that you are parenting that partner. You're like a parent. And if both are low, then it's a very toxic relationship. So I would say looking for a self-aware type and a type that is same level of maturity as you.
That makes sense as well. And so with the matchmaking service, what do you do about that? Are you assessing people's mastery levels?
I think most people are between low to moderate. And very few people actually move up to the high unless they have done quite a lot of personal development work on themselves. So our aim for our clients is to move them from wherever they are to a higher mastery level. And that would always be better because that means higher self-awareness. You open yourself up to more options. Higher success rates. So when we match them, it's really about gauging that mastery level. That's one. And also having the awareness that, okay, I'm going to match you with this type. So this person could also kind of manage their expectation. So if that person kind of do something that throws you off the chair, you're not too shocked. You just know, okay, this is this person just being this type. And it's nothing personal.
Do you see a lot of success stories with this? So people who have learned their Enneagram type and their partners, and they manage to successfully go through those stages: synergy, conflict, flourish.
Like I just give you some interesting stories. So one of the story was this guy who is a helper, right? A type 2, right? So when he came to me, he was like, Cindy, why am I always attracting all the bad women? You know, so it's like the kind that is always taking advantage of him, just wants his money, he's paying for everything, and after that they dumped him, right? And this is no surprise, right, for a helper, a type 2 personality, if he's not aware and he's too eager to please, too eager to give. So after the profiling, after the coaching session, I mean, we kind of agreed that, hey, you know, something's got to change. You got to learn to draw boundaries. You got to learn to say no. You got to learn to start setting certain criterias, like when to say no, how to say no, right? And assert yourself to know what you really want in a relationship. And of course, for a type 2, there is a tendency of this savior mentality, right? That I can help someone, I can save someone, you know, with my love. So then again, the type 2s might find themselves being attracted to people who kind of need help, that they see that, hey, you know, I can be of help to this person in certain areas. And that's when they get very interested in this person. So this is also a possible relationship blind spot. So I highlighted that to him, and then we go on a coaching journey for about 3 months. And after that, I matched him with a type 9, you know, and of course they hit it well, right? Like 2 and 9. Both are really nice people and very warm. So they kind of like each other after the first 2 dates, right? And then I kind of asked him a trick question. I asked him, what do you like about her? Okay. And then he listed what he likes about her. And I said, is there anything you think you could be of help to her? And then he's like, no, she's a complete person. She's fine. I say, good. And so you find yourself attracted to her. That's great. So it shows that you kind of move out of your blind spots. So then, you know, they proceeded, you know, and now, long story short, they are married with kids now.
Thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed meeting you and hearing about this. It's been really fun and interesting.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to share.
My next guest is master coach and entrepreneur Chayla Davison. As I mentioned, the interview format will be slightly different. There'll also be video versions from the next episode onwards.